Hey everybody, happy election day here in 2020. Hopefully everyone went out and voted. What is a profession that is likely to be heavily impacted by AI? And it's a very well-educated profession, and you might not think of it right offhand. It's lawyers. Lawyers are going to be very heavily impacted by AI. And we haven't talked about this one at all, but we should. And we should talk about the kinds of law that most lawyers do. So let's start with a personal lawyer will do a number of things for you. One is if you're buying or selling a home in a state where you're required to use an attorney. The attorney works on the property purchase or sale for you. That's all document driven. AIs are brilliant at documents. Why? Because an AI can read every property deal ever done in the United States and draft documents from that vast database that are superior to any human documents. So that's one thing. Another is writing you a will for your family. Again, documents, full automation. What's another one? Taxes. AIs eventually will be really, really good at taxes. Why? Because AIs are predicted to heavily interrupt accounting, and taxes is a branch of accounting. And it's really just all calculation and knowing the rules. Tax rules are pretty clear. I mean, they constantly have to be updated, but they're very clear. So an AI is very, very well suited to doing taxes. And so again, full automation over a reasonable period of time, which I'm defining as the next 10 years, 15 years. So that's all the personal stuff. Well, maybe you're getting a divorce. That too is documents. The one thing that can't be done by an AI, right, is the part of the referee. Now there's a job for you. That one will last. The referee who manages the dispute between the two parties. So that piece will remain. But the documents related to the divorce, full automation AI. So that's personal, just off the cuff. Then we have business lawyers. So business lawyers, one of the biggest things they do is write contracts, full automation AI. Another big thing that they do is writing corporate documents, and these corporate documents can be related to forming a corporation or amending the formation of a corporation, changing it. And other things are if you need to borrow money, well, there's documents involved in that, meaning a company needs to borrow money. Or if you're public, you're borrowing on the public markets. We'll talk about the public markets another time, but for now, suffice it to say that all of those documents related to corporate formation and financing and other things related to the financing, like lien documents and security documents and all that stuff, that full automation. So what else does a lawyer do? A lot of lawyers do taxes. Again, most lawyers who work on taxes are doing the really complicated stuff, right? Not the stuff that you get done at H&R Block that will be fully automated, which I'll check, but H&R Block is probably already working on that. So they're working on pretty complex tax issues, but again, if you feed all the rules into an AI, there's no reason an AI can't do it. So ultimately, again, full automation. So what does this mean? Well, what I'm trying to say to you is that, once again, AI will hit everything that is routine and repetitive. It will not hit stuff that requires a human touch, like mediation or litigation, appearing in the courtroom to represent a party. That's one thing a lawyer does that will not be automated by AI for the foreseeable future, nor being a judge for that matter. I think that's a point of friction where people are going to be pretty resistant to that. So expect humans to be involved in the legal profession, either as judges or as litigators in courtrooms, or maybe appearing before regulatory bodies. That will probably stay. So if you're thinking about being a lawyer, focus on those areas, or focus on an area that's potentially less likely to be automated. One of those may be environmental law. And the reason I say that is because each case is extremely fact specific, whereas a lot of the other things I just said are not. They're common between all companies or all individuals. But not environmental law is one, and I'm sure there's others that will be not as subject to automation or automated much, much later. So those are safe areas. And other things lawyers do is negotiate deals. They will still be needed to do that because you're still going to need that human-to-human interaction for that, and or negotiating trade agreements. Lawyers do a lot of things for the government, like trade agreements, agreements with utility companies, between a utility company and governments, things like that. Some of that is subject to automation, some of it isn't. The part that is not is the negotiating part. So again, that's a very human characteristic, to understand the rules and now science of negotiation and to do it well. So as you can tell, many parts of being a lawyer are going to be fully automated. And AI, for all you folks out there who think this is only going to hit like factory jobs and stuff like that, wrong-o. We've talked a lot about how AI is going to affect the medical industry. So all the hands-on work that doctors and nurses do with patients will remain, but surgery will probably be done by an AI. Certainly diagnosing illness, reading CAT scans, MRIs, all that stuff is already well into automation. So home health care is something that is going to be needed. But let's stick to lawyers. So a lot of the kinds of law I talked about are very highly compensated. There's people in the major cities doing a lot of corporate work or high-end tax work that make a lot of money, $500,000, $1 million a year. Those jobs are also going to be automated. I think when automation hits those people and they're not prepared for that or used to that kind of thing happening to their profession, there will be a much more vigorous discussion about what to do for people in terms of retraining, in terms of income replacement, whether you call that universal basic income or universal minimum income or whatever you want to call it. A lot of this is going to come to the head when wealthier people are hit just as significantly as less wealthy people. So AI, being a computer algorithm, is very democratic in the word of small d, democratic, meaning that it doesn't care whether you're rich or poor or factory worker or lawyer or doctor. It doesn't care about stuff like that. It's going to naturally automate everything it possibly can. And that includes a lot of other things, but for lawyers, this is going to drastically shrink the legal industry. So this is food for thought for you folks who are just thinking about maybe going to law school. You're in college. Law school costs at least $100,000 of student debt for people who cannot pay for it, whose parents can't pay for it, rather. If your parents can pay for it, you're very, very fortunate. But if they can't, and you're going to borrow the money, and you're going to end up with $100,000 to $150,000 of debt, you really want to think about that, because there's a lot of jobs where you can make a great living without the 3 years in school, without the $150,000 of debt, and without losing your job in the next 10 years, unless you're a litigator or a negotiator or one of those categories that we talked about that won't get automated out. Once this picks up steam in the legal profession, it's going to happen very, very quickly, because loading documents into an AI is pretty straightforward. Most court documents are publicly available. Many corporate legal documents are publicly available, and a lot of personal legal documents are publicly available, like divorces and stuff like that. So give it thought, because if you can make, in some parts of the country, many parts of the country, probably $100,000 to $150,000 a year being a plumber, maybe that's good enough, right? You save yourself the school, the debt, the stress, the aggravation. You still make a great living and take good care of your family. Electrician. So food for thought for all you aspiring lawyers. I'm sure they're not talking about this to you in law school, because that goes against their self-interest. But one of the things we're going to do on the AI guide here is be real with you. And the real story is, yes, of course, there's some legal profession jobs that are going to remain for a long time, some of which we talked about, and there's more, but there's many that are not. So food for thought. Thanks a lot. Please, again, hope you go out and vote. If you like this video, please subscribe. And I greatly appreciate all my subscribers. Thank you so much for watching. And please leave comments. I love to answer comments, and I answer them every week. So please leave comments. Thanks a lot. Take care and be well.